Great, good morning, everybody. My name is Eileen Beard. I am an agricultural resource conservation specialist with the Maryland Department of Agriculture. I work out of soil conservation districts. You can find me in Arundel, Prince George's, and occasionally Calvert. Just a little history on soil conservation districts. They started forming across the country in the 1930s as a result of the Dust Bowl. The districts are independent units of state government responsible for carrying out natural resource protection programs at the local level. So they are not a government entity. We kind of refer to ourselves as a pseudo-government entity. Currently, there are more than 3,000 soil conservation districts across the country. In Maryland, we have 24 districts, 1 in each county and 2 in Frederick. They're governed by a board of supervisors that meet monthly. And the supervisors are appointed by different entities. A couple of are appointed by the county government, University of Maryland Extension, Farm Bureau, nominated by county residents. The ones that are appointed do vote. Some districts have associate members that do not vote. The monthly meetings are public meetings. So if you're interested in attending those, a lot of districts are doing those over the internet right now. So you can check in with your local district and see when their meetings are and see if you can join in. The Soil Conservation District is a partnership between a couple different entities. First, you have the Maryland Department of Agriculture, which is who I work for. You have the USDA Natural Resource Conservation Service, which is a federal entity. And then you also have the district. And each district's kind of shaped a little different. They have different programs within them. A lot of them have the Urban Sediment Review. We have the Farm Service Agency housed in a couple of the district offices. The University of Maryland can be found in a couple of district offices, extension. Ag Land Preservation, I think PG is the only one that houses the Ag Land Preservation Program. A lot of the districts have agricultural equipment rental programs. Some of the districts also have urban agricultural programs. So we are focused on 2 main resource concerns: water quality, and our focus on water quality is to reduce sediment and nutrient runoff and to improve water quality, and we work a lot with soil erosion. And I have a couple of pictures I'm going to share that I think we can all relate to. Here's some typical soil erosion at fence lines, where the horses walk the fence lines. Soil erosion at a gate where they're all waiting to come in. Soil erosion, another fence line and gate erosion. And the picture on the right is a watering facility. So when you call your soil conservation district, the first thing we're going to want to do is make an appointment with you to come out and see what you have going on your farm. We're going to want to walk that farm with you. We're going to identify resource concerns that you have, and maybe concerns that we see. We're going to suggest solutions, and we're going to help you plan those solutions. We can also survey and design best management practices. These are free services to you as landowners or operators. And this is also the first step in the cost share process. I know there are a lot of questions in the chat box about cost share. So there are 2 main programs that we use for cost share. This is what they have in common. So there's a state program and there's a federal program. All of these cost share programs require a farm plan. Structural practices require a survey and design. Agronomic practices require an implementation plan. Practices must be installed according to NRCS standards and specifications. And we also serve as construction inspectors throughout the process to make sure that your contractor or you install the practice according to the standards and specifications. Landowner is reimbursed a portion of the cost share after the district certifies the installation. So you're going to be paying up front for the installation of this practice, and you're going to show us some receipts, and we're going to reimburse you a portion of the cost. You could be subject to future inspections to make sure that that practice is being well maintained. You have to maintain the practice for its lifespan. Each practice has a lifespan. The minimum one, I think, is pasture planting or prescribed grazing at a year, and they go up to 15 years for fencing, I believe. You want to keep documentation, receipts, and communication. We work with a lot of different farms throughout the year. We have a lot of different programs going on. So keep those lines of communication open with us. And of course, as with any program, paperwork, paperwork, paperwork. And when you think you're done with paperwork, we're going to bring you more paperwork. So the first program I want to talk about is the Maryland Agricultural Cost Share Program, and that is administered by the Maryland Department of Agriculture. The district will complete the application for the landowner and deliver it to MDA. You can apply for this program and receive approval year-round. There are limited BMPs eligible for this program. This program is focused on specifically water quality and soil erosion. You can receive up to 87.5% of the cost to install the practice. And I say up to 87.5% because the cost estimate is going to be based on individual flat rates for every district. So each district in the county has a flat rate schedule where they have averaged the cost of each component of the project. So the price of rock down here in St. Mary's County where I live versus the price of rock up in, say, Montgomery County might be different. So the same project might have a different cost. Livestock-related practices require a minimum of 15 animal units. You can apply with less animal units, but you may receive less cost share funding. An important one to note is that landowners who receive greater than $5,000 in cost share money may have your deed encumbered. This is to ensure that when a practice goes in, if you sell that property, your deed will be flagged so that the new owner can sign on to maintain that practice. This is the federal program, Environmental Quality Incentives Program, lovingly referred to as EQIP. It is administered by the Natural Resources Conservation Service, the USDA NRCS. You can apply for this program year-round. Projects are ranked once a year, and your projects will be ranked against other people in Maryland, and there's also a funding source that you can be ranked against other people in your county. This program has a wider range of BMPs eligible, and it's based on a regional flat rate. So we're the Mid-Atlantic region. I just want to note that if you're thinking about applying for this program and you're not already currently working with your soil conservation district, go ahead and get in touch with them because we're getting ready to accept applications and the application deadline will come along. So we want to make sure that you're on our radar, especially if you need a survey and design for a structural practice. So I want to talk a little bit about some popular equine best management practices. This is a roof runoff system, and these are almost always paired with an underground outlet. So our BMPs also have numbers associated with them, so that's why you'll see the numbers next to the title here. So roof runoff has to be maintained for 15 years. What I want to point out here is that where the animals or equipment may have access to, rub their butts on the downspouts, or, if you're going to run a tractor into the side of it, we require that you have a PVC covering protecting that so it doesn't get crushed and it continues to function as it should. And then we will take that roof water and we will run it underground to a safe outlet, hopefully well away from the barn. This is Steve Darcy's indoor, actually. The size of the roof and the amount of rain coming down was calculated into how many downspouts he needed on that. And I do believe he has another project to take this water and send it away from that indoor. We have forage and biomass planting, lifespan of 5 years. This is Miss Bonnie Darcy seeding their fields with the Soil Conservation District's no-till seeder, which is available for rent through the district. If you need assistance trying to determine what type of seed you want to plant, when to plant, how to plant, those are things we can help you determine. Prescribed grazing, can we assist you with installing or improving a prescribed grazing system? Do you have a way to install a loafing lot? Do you have a way to divide your pastures to allow for rest and regrowth of your pasture grasses? This is one that has a lifespan of 1 year. Fencing. We can also assist with installing fencing. This is the difference between the state and the federal cost share program. The state program will pay to fence horses out of waters of the state, whereas the federal cost share program will also pay defense forces out of waters of the state, but they will also pay or assist in paying to install interior fencing for rotational grazing, or if you need to bring in more land for grazing, that's one of the things they could assist with. Watering facility in heavy use areas. This is also Steve Darcy's farm. These are also paired together, paired practices. A watering facility is always designed with a heavy use area associated with it. As you can see here, Steve had a bit of a muddy mess at one of his gates, and there was a watering facility here already. So we went in and we put in a stone dust heavy use area, and that helped reduce the erosion and the mud issue at his gate and watering facility. Here's another watering facility that's on a shared fence line. It's an automatic water. So yes, we do cost share automatic waters. And this has a, looks like a concrete heavy use area around it. This is a heavy use area that is an animal walkway, goes between the fields and up to Steve Darcy's indoor there. We can also assist with some waste storage facilities. When we come out to talk about a waste storage facility, we're gonna base this on your operation. We're gonna ask you a lot of questions. We're gonna ask you how many horses you have. We're gonna ask you how many hours they spend in the field, how many hours they spend in the stall. What are you gonna do with your manure once it's stored? Are you gonna spread it? Or are you gonna have somebody haul it out? So this is a before and after shot of a nice waste storage facility that was cost shared through Max several years ago. They have their manure hauled off, and there's a nice concrete pad in front of this waste storage system. So when somebody's in there with equipment like a skid steer loader emptying it, they're not creating another resource concern right in front of that waste storage structure. Here's another concrete pad with wooden walls. A concrete pad with curbs. This one is a concrete pad with prefab concrete T-walls. A compost facility, which is what we've been doing a lot of talking about today. This is one for an equine operation with a roof over it. Has 3 bays for composting. Another 3-bay or 4-bay composter here with a roof on it. Another concrete pad with concrete walls, but no roof on this guy. So there's one last cost share opportunity or funding opportunity I want to talk about, and I just want to let you guys know that this is one that I don't work with specifically. If you have any questions about this program, your contact here is at the bottom, Alicia Mulkey at maryland.gov. The Animal Waste Technology Fund was established in 2013, and it supplies grants to companies for new technologies and alternative strategies for managing waste. I believe the funding cycle opens September 30th, and proposals are due by December 31st. New this year, MDA will accept proposals for innovative technology that will treat waste streams in addition to manure. For example, poultry processing waste, livestock mortality. These projects are reviewed by a technical review committee, and they also use a ranking system. You can actually find all the details for this program on the MDA website. And currently, MDA has 6 active projects. And I just wanted to highlight one, Veterans Compost. They were awarded funding in 2017, and they're developing a compost demonstration project to supply not only a composting facility, but public education and training facility in Anne Arundel County. And this is primarily geared towards horse operations. They are going to demonstrate aerated static pile at 3 different levels, a small scale, a medium scale, and a large scale. All 3 systems will be solar powered. The small and large systems will include storage tanks to retain the roof water for use in the composting process. And I believe they have currently constructed the small scale bin, and they're working on securing permits before proceeding. And if you'd like to contact me, this is my contact information. I'm currently teleworking, but you can find me out and about in the field once in a while, but email is the best way to get a hold of me. And if anybody has any questions.
Great, thanks Eileen for your presentation. So far, there's just 2 questions. If anyone has any others, feel free to go ahead and type them in. And Adam was also answering some of the questions down there as they come. But let's see, there was a question about roof runoffs, whether they're eligible, if the runoff passes through a paddock, waste area, heavy use pad, or is it eligible at other locations on the farm? The answer down in the chat was about that they are eligible if they will divert water from an animal confinement area, diverting clean water away. Is there anything you want to add to that, or it's pretty comprehensive?
You know, if you have a roof, you may be eligible through either program. My advice to you would be to contact your local soil conservation district and have them come out. When we come out to farms, we do not enforce anything. So if you have an environmental issue that you're worried about, we do not enforce any. We are here to help you.
Great, thank you. That is a really important note, just all around, both with MDA and soil conservation and things of that nature. Usually it's a very friendly environment. People are happy to come out and help. Let's see, someone did ask about concrete pad and walls. Do these interfere with aeration, oxygen, infiltration, anything like that? And Gary may chime in there, but yeah.
Yeah, the concrete pad will prevent infiltration down through the soil. And it depends on if you're looking at a concrete pad for composting or a concrete pad for storage. They're going to be a little bit different, or for composting, they're going to be a little bit different.
Right. I think they were also wondering just about like if it'll impact the ability of the composting process to happen. If you're kind of blocking off the pad and the walls, you know, will it limit oxygen from being able to get into the pile, promoting the composting process?
It does inhibit it somewhat, but it also can be designed so that you get enough air infiltration into it to work. That's some of the chambers that are the bins that she showed you. You notice that they were kind of shallow. They were only like 12 feet from front to back. And that's designed so that the oxygen can come in from the open side. They are prone to getting a little bit wet and anaerobic in the back corner. We've laid irrigation tube in the back corner and been pretty successful at ameliorating that for a deer composting operation we have up on I-70.
Very interesting. And then there's, let's see, there's a couple more cost share questions here. So do the cost share programs differ between soil conservation districts and from state to state? And does it tend to change based on funding opportunities?
Yeah, the state program
or like tight economic.
The state program I spoke about is a Maryland specific program. The NRCS EQIP program is a federal program, so that should be across the board, across the country.
Great. And is there a risk of like any defunding due to tight economic conditions? Does it
Of course, there's always a risk. Yep, there's always a risk.
Yeah.
The EQIP program, that's based on the Farm Bill. So that one changes year to year. So depending on the funding, they could change what BMPs they're going to cost share or what the amount of cost share is.
The Animal Waste Technology Fund could be defunded when we run out of applications.
Oh. And then the last question that I see here, well, let's see. There's a question about, is windrow composting supported by cost share?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, you just need to, you need to have somebody from soil conservation come out, check out your operation and see which direction you want to go.
Okay, great. That's all the questions for Eileen. There are a few general questions at the end. Dwight, should I go ahead and get into those, or?
Yes, let's go ahead and I kind of hope that maybe Gary can kind of tie it all together for us too. So let's go ahead and take those general questions and then let Gary sum things up for us here today.
Great. So one general comment that came up earlier was just about composting on a very small scale. What does it look like for, say, an operation with 1 to 5 horses? And is it practical for them to handle that on site and have a robust composting program?
You want me to touch on that?
Yeah, that would be great. Do you want to turn on your video again so we can see you?
I don't want to smile.
Oh.
Okay. The Veterans Compost site has got a compost operation. Part of it is about just a hair over a cubic yard, and it's made out of plywood. So it's a very simple operation intended for 1 cubic yard. It is a forced air system. The forced air is, the energy source is a solar collector. Now, they don't have the solar collector up and running right now. They just have the compost system right there. And right now it's composting wood chips. But once it gets permitted, let's see, it was approved in 17, and it's now the end of 20, and it hasn't been permitted by Anne Arundel County yet. So once it gets permitted, it will have solar collectors and forced air system. So it's the only forced air system that I know of that's run with solar energy, which is pretty low energy. And it would be something to be worth looking at if you're going to install something for small animals. I mean, for small numbers of animals. Yeah, it was Peter Moon's system out of O2 composting. Jane asked the question to everyone. It's the O2 composting company that designed it.
And Emily, this is Steve. The question addresses from 1 to 5 horses. Our stable operation now is very small. We have 1 boarder that has 2 horses, and my wife has 3, so we're 5-horse operation. But we still use the same process. We fill the dump wagon up. I usually dump it once a week, depending on the weather. You know, if the horses are in more, like during the rainy season, like which has been all year for us. But so I might have to dump it every 4 days. Take it to the compost facility, windrow it, and you know, do the process. So definitely 5 horses. You can make some good amount of volume of good quality compost in 12 months.
That's really helpful, Steve. Thanks for sharing that. Another general question kind of about concerns with herbicides and pesticides persisting. This participant was wondering, how can farmers know if the manure, bedding, and feed is grown with herbicides and pesticides? If it is, could it then be persistent in the end product compost? And what if the farmer doesn't know about their sources? Is this a risk? How does this impact their ability to produce quote unquote clean compost?
By clean, I assume you mean it doesn't have persistent herbicides. Yeah, it's a risk. The farmer that grew the feed knows whether he was using persistent herbicides or not. Buy from somebody you know. That's the best way to do it. I know one farmer that uses persistent herbicides. He will not let his straw leave his farm. So he knows that it's a question. He knows he has to deal with it. He composts his straw and spreads it back on pasture land. So you can get persistent herbicides. Remember, the test is easy to figure out. It's 3 seeds in a styrofoam cup and see whether they come out straight or crooked. Takes 2 weeks to do it. So it's not real hard to test for.
I'll weigh in on that. I'll weigh in on that question as well. For some time, I was picking up 4 or 5 other no land equine operations. And I just made the assumption that all the hay that those operations were feeding had that type of, the hay producer used that type of chemical. So I would just, once my compost was mature, that I would do bioassay tests like Gary's talking about. But I have a question for Gary. If it grows red root pigweed, is that a good bioassay?
I'm not sure. That stuff is so tough. I'm not sure what it would take to hurt it.
Yeah, but it is very simple. And tomato plants are also a good test that I learned from my extension agent. Just put a couple seeds in there, and if they grow and look good, you're good to go. And so far, over the 20 some years that I've been doing it, I have not had anybody complain that crops or grass, vegetables, whatever they're raising, they had any issue with it.
There are some people that are trying to ban the persistent herbicides from grazing crops and from basically any agricultural product. It is also used in some turf grass operations, so it can also get into grass that goes to a compost operation at a municipal landfill. So there's still routes for it to get into a compost supply.
Great. And the last question I have is about the effectiveness of commercially available compost enhancing products.
What in the world?
So I'm not sure. There's
I think I know what that's being talked about. There are some basically packets of microbes that are sold with the idea that you need to seed compost. I haven't found a research project that does a good job of supporting that yet. The same thing, has anybody heard of the product called Ridex, that you got to put that in your septic tanks? Well, septic tanks behave okay without Ridex. You don't really need it. So the same is true, to the best of my knowledge, for composting operations. Now, that said, if you're doing something like biosolids, you will develop over the years strains of bacteria that work better in the biosolids, but I don't think you can buy those. I think you have to develop them for your biosolids. I know that the operation goes on in Baltimore City. Viola Water's operation from the Back River wastewater treatment plant does in fact have some biological strains that are a little more specific and can handle biosolids better. But they develop that themselves by accident. One thing that I hope you all have learned from this is that there's operators out there like Steve, like the other two operators that we had, that know something. So if you're thinking about doing this on your farm, ask some other people that have already done this. That's one of the best sources of information out there. And most people that are doing composting are willing to share their knowledge. Talk to the people that have made the mistakes already. You've gotten some information. There is a lot more information that can be put into coursework. We can talk, for instance, about composting horses instead of horse manure. That may be something because becomes more popular as the expense of disposing of horse carcasses increases. Haulers and renderers don't take kindly to horse carcasses as much as they used to.
That's a very good point, Gary. Mad cow disease. I think USDA did maybe it was NRCS, did a large animal composting workshop about 10 years ago, because the animal processors will not take deceased cattle or sheep unless, I think you have to take the spine out. And I mean,
spine and the brain.
Very, very strict. So, and I can tell you, I've done some large animal composting. It's not rocket science.
Nope.
It's I've composted a 500-pound pig, and I've composted a 150-pound doe that was hit on the road and landed on the farm. So it's easy to do. It's good if you already. It's easier to do if you're already into composting, because you need that compost material to bed the animal in. But I would be glad to participate in a webinar like that too, because I think that's important.
I have taught large animal composting on dairy farms several times.
My wife always jokes with her friends that if anything ever happens to her, to check the compost facility.
This is Ross Petticourt from the Horse Industry Board. That is a actually pressing topic that we've had a lot of inquiries on. It's hard, it's expensive to move the equine carcasses now. And when you put that on top of the vet bill, if the horse has been sick and then had to be euthanized, it runs into thousands of dollars. So that is a huge topic, and we would love a webinar on horse composting. That would be great.
I think Dwight's taking notes.
Yeah, yes, I too have been to large animal composting demonstrations before, and I know that certainly is a good thing to think about. So that probably is the way it would go. It wouldn't just be equine, it would be a large animal composting. And as Gary pointed out, if you go along Route 70 and see the deer composting up there, up on the hill behind a pull off for trucks there, they're doing it as well. I'm always a little bit concerned about that one because it always looks like some runoff running down the hill. But yeah, I think it certainly is something we need to look at for the future. And I think there was one question about who handles the dead horses today, and probably Ross, you probably would be a good connection for that. I come from the dairy industry, and I know for us it's not possible today. You have to find another way. But if you have questions specific to that, why don't you contact Ross? I think he can help you with that one. And I think we're getting some other resources are popping up on your screen right now as well. I think we're getting pretty close to the end of the time that we allocated for today. Hopefully we've answered your questions. And the resources are available. We will be available to answer questions